Okay, it is recording. So if you can tell us your name and your preferred pronouns.
My name's Jason. I'm a he, him. I'm a senior here at MIT.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And can you talk about where you grew up? Kind of describe what it was like.
So I mostly spent most of my life growing up in the Bay Area. Growing up, I was surrounded by just a large Asian immigrant community. It's like a fairly diverse place over there.
And so, how has if at all, has your cultural background affected your view of like romantic relationships?
Yeah, so my parents both immigrated from Beijing before they had me, and so they actually got divorced, and I basically spent most of my life being raised by a single mother. I almost never talk about dating or girls with my mom. It's just different when like you grow up with a mom and you're a guy, and like I think there's like already like some fundamental sort of discomfort probably with like me talking to like my mom about this as compared to like a guy, and that's just exacerbated by the fact that in Asian cultures it just like is not the norm at all to communicate emotionally about this kind of stuff. My dad being not somebody that like would ever talk about anything of substance emotionally at all, and I think that's the case for a lot of males, is that there's not many male figures in their life that are emotionally open. And so it's really, really hard, I think, for guys growing up to be emotionally open. I think there's kind of a sort of cultural gap in communication between me and my mom. It's just really hard to talk about a lot of like sort of the ways that dating is framed in America to someone who's an immigrant. You see like the classic movies about how like white high schoolers in like rural, or not rural, whatever, but like places will like date. And I think it feels very different from like my experience as an Asian American growing up in the Bay Area. But it's kind of funny because like at this point she's just clinging on to like whenever I bring up a female name in front of her. But the first thing she always asks me is she Chinese? Which I totally understand. I mean, it totally makes sense in her eyes.
What has that experience been like simply dating?
We're all here to find meaning in college, obviously. And yeah, I think a lot of people here at MIT find a lot of meaning through their relationships. And I'm also obviously trying to look for meaning romantically. So I've never been in a relationship here in college. I've had a couple of like, I guess, like more casual things. I have used all the dating apps pretty much. I've used Tinder, I've used Bumble, I've used Hinge. I mean, maybe that's all I've used, so maybe that's not all of them. But and I'd say I'm like semi-active on them right now. Comes and goes, I guess. I know like the challenges of dating apps are like really, really different for people who identify as men versus people who identify as women. Obviously, I'm just gonna speak from my perspective. Yeah, like dating, I think in this modern world is just really fucking hard. It's pretty hard to find connection that is sort of long lasting and like really emotionally true in nature. I think using dating apps takes an emotional toll on you, because I don't think the human brain was evolved to be able to process and understand and interact with like that many women in a row. For a lot of people, for me, every time you get rejected by someone, it takes an emotional toll. And you know, every time even you have to reject someone, it takes an emotional toll. And I think that's actually why ghosting is so big in dating apps, which is a problem in and of itself. But I also do just genuinely think that Asian males are not very desirable in like sort of American society. Well, I mean, just in my experience, like the people that will swipe at me are like most likely going to be Asian anyways. I think like people of other races are like very, very unlikely to swipe on me. It's pretty weird to get rejected that much on a dating app, but like not face that rejection to any same degree like in real life. There's this feedback loop of trying to numb away the pain of the lows of getting rejected by, you know, trying to place even more and more of your value on you know, getting accepted by some random girl on Tinder. And yeah, I think it can get to be a very, very vicious loop that I've often experienced myself in before in the past.
Yeah, got it. And given those negative experiences on apps, have you ever considered like not using them at all, or like what pulls you to keep staying on them?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, including myself, have a lot of trauma that sort of comes up whenever like relationships are brought up as well. Like lots of trauma surrounding relationships. It becomes hard to like sort of find connection that doesn't really like sort of rub against your trauma. And that's not saying that it's not okay for it to rub against your trauma, but I think also like a lot of us like don't really know how to heal from this trauma very well. And because of that, I think it gets really hard to be in a relationship with someone where like all of us are like sort of carrying these like past shadows, I guess. You know, a lot of times like maybe communication will break down, like a lot of like internal like feelings of like, I don't know, like shame or self-worthlessness. We as a society are getting a lot better at recognizing our traumas and facing a lot of these like emotional problems that like people 2 generations ago could just not even understand. But with that, I think like it's just brought up a lot of very, very sort of painful things that painful dating things that I think are really, really reflected in a lot of society. Society places a lot of emphasis on romance and relationships as the sort of like answer to meaning. And I think that feels very unhealthy a lot of the time. A lot of us need to heal in a way that's true to ourselves and affirmative to ourselves and just unconditional of any relationship or anything like that. I have a lot of empathy towards like everybody who's struggling through a lot of these emotional things in relationships because of that, because it's like so hard, and I think it's pretty unprecedented. Like a lot of adults like wouldn't understand what we're going through either. And yeah, I hope people figure it out.
Yep. Thank you so much.